Wake up, buyer payer people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhoads on the Buy Here Pay Here Morning Show. Take it away, you two.
Hey, good morning, everybody.
Hello,
Happy Monday after Thanksgiving. I hope you all had a beautiful holiday. We did a rerun on Friday. And so, I hope you enjoyed that too.
And now the holiday's over, so we don't have to be thankful anymore. We don't have to express any gratitude.
That time is over.
Right, that's over. That's not till next year. Right.
Yeah. Now it's the time for putting up Christmas lights and all that kind of stuff. So which is something that we're in process of doing right now.
Sure.
So
all good.
All good.
Got a lot of things going on. It's been a kind of a busy stretch, although I did take some time. I took some downtime over the holiday, and I haven't been doing enough of that lately. I enjoy my work, so I don't mind, digging in and staying after the stuff. So it's enjoyable to me. But hey, Tyler Simmons in Texas.
Normally, Jim's not someone that says, "Hey, I'm gonna take a few days off," and because when he said 5 days, I was like, "Whoa."
Yeah, okay. Well, I didn't do 5, I think, but I did do most of 3. So
baby steps.
Yeah, right. That's right.
That's awesome.
I go crazy. I would be a little bit nuts.
Yeah.
But I did enjoy watching some football this weekend. My Oklahoma State Cowboys just had an up and down year, and thankfully they finished on an upswing in the second overtime to get to the Big 12 championship. Should be a fun weekend.
Yeah. So. And I had the opportunity. My best friend was in town from Sedona, Arizona, and we got together with a group of gals that you probably hear every once in a while. I'm gone for a week with my tribe of women, and so we had an opportunity to spend a little bit of time, and it was just lovely. Yeah. What a great time. So
good.
All right, but we're back. We're rested, and we're ready to get going. The last couple of days of November, and then we head into the last month of the year.
Right.
It's hard to believe.
So I got to check something here. After I closed out the other device, are slides still there?
No.
I killed that, didn't I?
You did.
Oh, shoot. Okay. So you want to pause for a minute? Let me get the other device going. I mean, that was our whole show.
Yeah. So Jim, we're going to be talking about collections and key performance indicators. Go ahead and do that while I'm,
okay.
Yeah. And we can be chatting while you're pulling it up and getting it going. But, this weekend, we didn't think about work. And then last night as we're getting ready for bed, he says, morning show. And I was like, what do you want to talk about? And he said, I want to think about it right now. And so this morning got up and got busy on doing some slides, and just super grateful that I've got a partner that enjoys that tremendously, the slide thing and all of that. So, alrighty. Awkward pause, silence within the studio. That's never a good thing. You kind of want to keep going with people. So do you want to, while you're doing that, just reload them, kind of talk about
just load them one at a time, I suppose.
Okay. Very good.
But yeah, I mean, I can share a couple things. One, it looks like we did an episode on collection numbers, and we talked about 2, and those 2 are still in my top 4. However, I won't spend a lot of time on those other 2 since we've covered those. I've already got the link ready to be able to send you back to the episode we did before. And I spent most of my time in that first episode talking about collection efficiency, because, that's been a thing for me for a long time. It's something we work with a lot of our clients.
Honey, that's like your thing. That's one of the things at the conferences and things that people know you for is collection efficiency.
It's true. And it's because I started measuring it 20 years ago, like a 20 plus.
Yeah.
And so we continue to do it.
Do you want this on?
Sure, we can go ahead and tee that up. And you can try this one right here.
This is
it's got our image on there. Okay, that's cool. All right, so collection efficiency, and this is an actual client's data report, and it shows down there, you probably can't read it, but I think it says 36 weeks worth of history. And so what you're seeing, I realize these numbers are hard to tell on the screen. And for those who will be listening to this on audio, I'll kind of explain what's on the screen. You've got collection efficiency net, which again, I won't spend a lot of time here because we talked about it before, but I just want to show you, this is what's really achievable. This one is filtered for payments greater than $1,000. So those are kind of the unexpected payments. And what
Mhm.
it shows, that green solid line across there is the 93% baseline that you hear me talk about.
Which, yeah,
So
yeah.
you can,
We try to get our clients to above 93%
sure.
in their collection
And you can
efficiency.
see that in this case, we have. I mean, it's pretty
Mhm.
common unless you've just really got a messy portfolio. This one's pretty stable portfolio, and all we've done is show them
Mhm.
how to start tracking it, and they start tying compensation to this number. And so what you're seeing there is just evidence that it is possible to run 93% or better. It's a more difficult one to produce. But the question is it worth it to you to produce it? I'm going to say yes. So you just got to know how to do it. If you don't know, reach out to
You
us.
mean
and we'll-
produce this number? Okay, yeah.
Right. So I would say, because there's not a DMS out there that I'm aware of that produces this in this way. So you would need you would need a couple of key reports captured at key times, in a consistent interval, in order for this to be a
Mhm.
reliable figure. But we think it's the most important.
Yeah.
It's number one on my list of the numbers
Yeah.
I would recommend.
And those key reports at key times, and some DMSs play nicer than others about just doing it naturally,
Sure.
and others you have to remember to go in and do the thing.
Well, and
when
some don't
it's
produce it. Some don't
Yeah,
give
that's
you
true.
the information that the report that we would be recommending. So again, for today, I didn't want to spend a lot of time on it. I'll share the link.
Okay.
And like I said, I've already got it teed up, so I can share
Okay.
the link here, and people can refer to that for more in-depth
Okay.
information on the collection efficiency and why it matters. Now, the other one, let me get it ready, is going to be conversion rates. And again, you've heard me talk about that as well. So this graph just shows, you can see on the left side of this graph that the numbers were running pretty close together. So let's talk about what the two numbers are. The green line up there is tracking collected principal as a percentage of the opening principal for the period. So if we measured this for October, we would be saying we collected X
October.
amount of principal in the month of October, and that doesn't have to be filtered. That's just all principal collected.
Principal, not
Uh-huh.
interest.
Right.
Principal.
So just principal.
Just
This
principal.
is like a principal conversion measurement.
Mhm.
Okay?
Okay.
So now and these numbers also would drive a lot of what lenders look at: collateral recovery rates. Others look at that, but a lot of the numbers that are the most impactful numbers in a
Mhm.
collateral recovery rate are these that you see on this slide. So now the red bar is charged off principal. This is gross charged off principal as a percentage of the opening balance.
Yeah. Can I add a little bit of
Please.
commentary on that? We have worked with a lot of different clients, and sometimes it's like a really extended engagement. Other times it's a shorter engagement, and I have seen, as someone that's not part of the world of buy here, pay here, that charging off vehicles sometimes can be a real emotional and it's almost like, how sometimes when you know that you have to do something that you don't want to do, you put it off and you put it off and you put it off and you try to find reasons not to do it, and it gets bigger when you don't do it. And so there's a couple of things that I see, and I've witnessed as we've talked to people, that it's like they try everything they can to not have to have a clean number there. I've just where it's like, I don't want to, it needs to be a little bit different here, or and it just am I
Well, I'm not sure I understand what you're basically saying, that they postpone doing it because they want their numbers to look better.
Because they want their numbers to look better.
Okay.
And then it's like, if when we throw everything in, and then it's like, it just skews, or everything looks so skewed. It's like, oh my gosh, this looks awful.
Yeah.
And then it's like, I don't want to do that, or it's kind of deflating. But it's like, when you can do that, and then that's when you start your baseline, and you start measuring things and doing it in a really timely manner. And it just may have a huge dip for that, but then it's just all going to level out. And then you're going to have, we keep talking about, you can't really have an opinion on a thing unless you're measuring the thing, and
Mhm.
you have to have good, clean measurements of the thing before you can say, this is good, this is not good, this is
Sure.
something we need to work on.
Yeah,
So,
and I gave a pretty extensive answer to somebody not long ago who was asking about, KPIs and numbers to measure. And so I
mhm,
gave the whole rundown on collection efficiency thing. I think so. I'm going to say something that's easy to say and it's harder for some dealers to do.
mhm,
The part that's easy is like we would obviously recommend that every dealer have as clean and efficient a portfolio as they can possibly have. Meaning, when a contract stops performing and we've done everything we can to try to resolve the thing, and now
mhm,
we've deemed it uncollectible,
mhm.
then we would be recommending that that account be charged off. By the way, so would your lender, so would a lot of other people, your 20 group moderators, they would be recommending charge it off.
Yeah.
So the reason that we have to ask ourselves, if we're not doing that, what would be the motivation that we would not be charging off? Because almost any answer you could give on that is a little dangerous. Like, we're kidding ourselves at the minimum in terms of our portfolio performance. So that's
Mhm.
why these numbers are important. You can see on the left side of that slide that this dealer was charging off about as much principal as they were collecting for a period of time. And then we started to work together and figure out how to, widen that gap. And so
Mhm.
now I think it's pretty simple that and I've written articles about this. We don't need a Harvard degree to understand why that is really the number. We're looking for more collections in principle than what we're charging off. It's
Yeah,
like,
that gap is good, and
yeah,
it's really kind of cool to watch
right.
as we work with different clients that that gap
Yeah. So
happening.
again, these
Mhm.
numbers would be driving a lot of the collateral. Or, I'm sorry, the numbers that you would find in a collateral recovery rate.
Mhm.
So just be aware that that's
Okay.
something else
So that
that.
was collected principal versus charged off principal.
Yeah,
So,
and let me also explain. There's another slide for you to be able to share. I can also explain that I'm suggesting four different numbers because this is like I don't have a good metaphor for this, but basically when we have four different ways to slice it and look at all of them, then you're going to get a better indication of the overall performance. We're already through three now. You see the third one on the slide, delinquency, as I wrote in the comments of the
mm-mm.
description of the show, delinquency is not even on the list. Like I know a number of dealers that just really operate from delinquency, and that's got its own set of problems. So I
Mhm.
think it's just you're limiting what you can learn from that information. And so what we'd like to see you
Does it feel
do.
kind of punitive to you too when people have well, not punitive, when pay plans
Mhm.
and commissions are based off of delinquency,
So
that it creates its own conflict.
it does. It definitely
Yeah.
creates internal conflicts on the team. It puts a lot of pressure in
Mhm.
places that we think are not always appropriate. And so that by itself is problematic. And it makes us sometimes be reactive. So in order to really explain that in any kind of depth, we'd have to spend more time on collection efficiency, which we pretty much did in that prior episode. So rather than kind of belabor that, I would just say that delinquency tells a story, but it's a pretty incomplete story about your
Mhm.
portfolio performance. It's not the best indication of portfolio performance. And like I said, it's not even on the top four here. So it's like it, because these numbers, your delinquency can move, it will ebb and flow. And by
Mhm.
the way, I didn't share with you, Michelle, that I saw some reports come into us over the weekend and, and collections for some of our clients were awful through the week of Thanksgiving.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
well,
that means their
everyone's buying
delinquency.
food
Yeah.
and yeah, getting oh,
So
yeah.
I
Wow.
would recommend, being proactive about that going into the holiday, right? But now we're at a
Mhm.
place where Monday morning, we got a long list of
Yeah.
delinquent accounts. And so we have to be reactive in that way. But I would just make the case that, look, that delinquency report can be up and down. It'll ebb and flow. It'll have its cycles. And so the question becomes, is that really an indication of the portfolio performance? If, just ask any dealer,
Mhm.
if your delinquency spiked the week after Thanksgiving, but you got all those payments caught up in the trailing 2 or 3 weeks behind Thanksgiving, could you live with that?
Yeah.
If so, if all those payments get collected and get caught up, then you would be 100% collected across a 4-week period, for an
Mhm.
example. So it's like, what does delinquency
And
really mean?
if your compensation is if delinquencies is a key number, gosh, it's got to suck for your team during the holidays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like really suck for your team. And it's stuff that's just really not so much in their control.
That's a good point. Like, and at a time that they want their own bonuses,
Yeah.
they're having, so the way they get there is applying pressure to people who are feeling pressure
who
of their
wants
own.
to feel pressure. Can I interject? This squirrel, but not really squirrel. I was at the grocery store Wednesday, and oh my gosh, I'm going to get super emotional about this. I was at the grocery store on Wednesday, and I'm bebopping around Walmart because I had to get some things that were not grocery. And Walmart's like the superstore. You go to Walmart, you get all your stuff. And I was being very observant of people there, and just kind of like a people preparing for their holiday feast. And I observed, ones where it's like the grocery cart was just jam-packed full. There's pies, there's a turkey, or not a turkey, because hopefully they've already got their turkey, but it's just full of food, and people are jovial and they're happy. And then there were others that I saw this woman with a babe on one hip, one in the cart, and one kind of trailing around, and the things in her cart were so meager. And it was just, you could just see her like, okay, I've got this much money. And trying to put together, and you could see she was trying to put together a feast that she could afford. And then I saw another couple sitting in an aisle, just hovering over this cart, and they're looking on their phone, and they're just crying.
Oh boy.
And I was like, fudge, these are in a lot of ways our customers this time of the year.
Absolutely.
And I know I feel too. It's like I can pick up what people are feeling, and it's just like, and so that it kind of brought me down just a little bit. But don't do that to your team, and don't do that to your customers. That's rough. So I'm done.
I think the tie-in, and we covered it. It's part of the reason you hear me lean on collection efficiency. It's like it allows us to have a more long-range outlook on collections, not be too reactive, not apply too much pressure, because we know that pressure against a customer who's already struggling, just leads to too many repos and charge-offs. So that's what I hope we're trying to avoid as dealers out there. And obviously in this time, you've got Thanksgiving behind you now. We're headed into Christmas. And so I think our ability to be, so our ability to be reactive. And I think, we talked about this in some depth in the past about, some dealers have covenants in their lender agreement, right? And so it hurts them, it hurts the dealer financially when accounts reach a certain stage of delinquency because the contract becomes ineligible. That means the dealer has to make it up in cash. It's, so they feel the impact of that when the customer reaches that stage of delinquency.
But do you think they still have a full cart at the grocery store? The dealer?
Yeah, dealer's probably
just fine.
Dealer can manage that better. But there is a very real financial impact to them when they have a lender in the picture, and there are covenants. So it's a thing to be aware of. So I think, it kind of ties back to, obviously I'm reminded of the conversation we had with Russell Moore, a month or so ago about that whole thread about how do we react
lenders
to
tightening their belts, and the pinch that dealers are feeling, and how they're feeling frustrated and a little bit like, I don't know what to do.
Right.
And, just.
And so, virtually all of these charts that we're looking at, except for the one that's on the slide or on the screen now, what you're seeing here is the principal and interest collected per active account. And people will say, well, what should that number be? Well, that depends on your portfolio. It depends on what your average payment is. But this is a simple one. It's easy for most anybody to produce. You would just have to know the number of active contracts that you had in the portfolio at the start of a period. And so now the reason I like this one is because now you can see your own performance. Like, look at this particular dealer. The last 4 months have been consecutive increase. Now,
June
is that because
really
they're
good.
increasing the payment they're charged to the customer? I don't know. But the reality is this is how much they collected principal and interest
per active account
at the start of the period. So it's an easy number for anybody to get to. And it's just one more point of reference. I can't emphasize that enough. Like, if you have multiple points of reference in your analysis, then you will know what to react to.
Yeah.
right? And
That's lovely.
so I think what
Yeah.
it does
Oh
is
my
it helps, everybody understand that there's more than one way to look at this thing. And I think, a lot of what you're referring to, Michelle, is what you hear me talk about in terms of, collections approach that is based on, flexibility. It's
Mhm.
part of what I obviously is the white hat approach. We recommend, flexibility, and especially at the holidays, we just have to, one of the ways that we can do that and avoid having that impact on the borrowing base or whatever else is to be proactive, have a strategy going into the holidays and have a plan to be able to help
Yeah.
customers through it. And so we think that's part of how you do that.
Yeah.
So let me give you one more final slide.
Okay.
So this one is a little more high level. Like this, maybe not even every manager, would have access to this information. So it's like what we're looking at here is it's often called, I hear it just referred to as interest coverage. So this is irrespective of your involvement with a lender. I'm talking about the interest collected or interest earned, basically collected, deposited on versus net charge-off losses. So let's just do the math on net charge-off loss. If you repossess a customer who has an account balance of $10,000, a principal balance, a gross principal balance at the time of the repossession of $10,000, and you recovered a car that has a $4,000 ACV, then the net charge-off loss would be $6,000. So if you take those net charge-offs for the month and you measure that against the interest collected, so this is again a little more high end, so a
Mhm.
little more advanced calculation, but
Mhm.
this is another indication that your portfolio is doing well. And this is
Well, how
also,
how do you know if your portfolio is, because I mean, I'm seeing a lot of different variations here.
Mhm.
So, like, what is a good
And
trend?
it will be up
What
and
is a
down.
yeah?
This is a 3-month rolling average, and you're still seeing those,
This
peaks
is
and
a three.
valleys.
Okay.
Why?
Mhm.
So because during the 3-month period that in this case, in month 10, the 3 months that ended there, so that would be
That'd
what,
be
months 8, 9, and
8, 9,
10,
and 10.
they
Yeah.
had a pretty high charge-off rate apparently, or they collected poorly. It's more likely that the charge-offs would drive that kind of a spike. So they
Mhm.
just had a high range of charge-offs. But even at that,
So
no,
the higher
actually I'm
in
saying
there
that
is like this. These are what you're. This is okay.
yeah.
What I'm trying to get to is the lower, the
Yeah.
better
Yeah,
of
I actually
of these
just I
graphs.
said that wrong. So
Okay.
that particular spike with the one that you're seeing that has was that number 86,000.
Mhm.
That's yeah, I'm mistaken. That's a gain of their interest exceeded
Okay, gotcha. So
their
you're
net
backwards.
charge-offs by that. So you're right. The lower number
Okay.
is
So
going
when
to
you're
be
looking at the month 3 and 4,
mhm.
that's where they didn't have as high an interest bringing in as they did charge-offs. Is that what you're saying?
Well, they were actually positive in all of these. All these numbers are
Yeah,
green and above zero.
which
So
is okay.
yeah, so basically this particular dealer, at least on a rolling average, and all these
Mhm.
numbers I'm showing you today are from actual dealers. These are actual slides, actual data. We just don't say who they are, but you basically and so you're looking at real information. And so basically what you're seeing there is that every month, at least based on a 3-month rolling average, they've been positive in that regard. Their interest collected from consumers is in excess of the net charge-offs across the same period.
Okay.
So that's what we were looking for, and that's where people that are coming from the finance sector, that's what almost any lender up and down the finance sector. That's what they'd be looking for. They'd be looking for, that's the reason lenders charge interest is to offset their risk in providing the funding. So
Mhm.
so this is why we want to look at that and make sure that
Mhm.
we're covering our net charge-offs. And if you and it will be negative on any given month. That's why I choose a rolling average here. You could extend that to a 6-month rolling average and see a smoother chart,
Mhm.
without you it's kind of flatten out the peaks and valleys by doing a longer
Can
average.
I'm not
Yes.
squirrel, but
Yeah.
yeah. um so really the reason why we charge interest is to mitigate charge-offs.
Mhm.
It's not about making, is it about making money?
Well, it's about It's about making sure we don't lose money.
Yeah,
You know,
making
it's
sure we
kind of
don't lose money.
yeah.
Okay.
So,
So,
is another way to say it, if we knew every customer would pay every payment all the way to the end of the contract, we could all charge a lot less interest.
okay, that was kind of where I was going. So it's like if as you improve the performance from your consumer, from your customer,
Absolutely.
you will have more going in to your books or your accounts, whatever, of
Mhm.
interest collected.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and
Cool.
I would just, say for everybody, because there's some people listening who, are really good at math, and they'll say, well, what should my numbers be? Well, obviously these numbers can vary a little bit depending on, and I was mindful of this, like obviously when a portfolio is brand new,
Mhm.
then you're going to have more
Is
interest
this
earnings.
an older dealer, a more seasoned
This one's a
dealer?
pretty established
This
dealer,
is an established dealer. Okay.
but really
Gotcha.
it should really, um, it over a range of time, I
Mhm.
might recommend at least 6 months rolling average here.
Mhm.
Give yourself a little time if you're brand new, because you will have peaks and valleys. You'll have periods of charge offs. And so as your portfolio grows, though, as it becomes mature and stable, then this is what we'd be looking for is,
Mhm.
to have all the bars be green and be positives, that we're earning enough interest to offset our net
And we
charge off.
have, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, we've seen some dealers when we've come in and started working with them that it's in the negative.
Yeah, well, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens, and I think, for me, for today, I was just trying to if I could only pick 4, like, if I accepted a job tomorrow as a collection supervisor or managing a portfolio or finance
Mhm.
company, and I could only pick 4 to really know
Yeah.
how I'm doing, that first one I didn't mention, the collection efficiency, that one's measured weekly. That's the only way it'll really work
So
for you.
this collection efficiency. So
That's
that's
weekly.
one is
Uh-huh,
collection efficiency. The
right.
second one is collected principal versus charged
Yeah, so I
off
might call that one
principal.
generally principal conversion, and that one is a monthly number,
So that's a monthly number.
again, on
The
a rolling
next
average.
one is the principal and interest collected per active account
Per month. So
per
you're
month.
looking at
And
a
that's
single
not a
month.
rolling either.
No,
That's
I'm
a
not averaging that one.
okay.
I'm just saying that one, we're looking at each individual month.
Yeah. And then the last one is the interest collected versus the net charge off loans. And that's the one that you do the rolling.
I
Yeah.
chose to, in this case, do 3 months. So you could do
Mhm.
longer. Just know that all you're really doing is you're just, taking out the peaks and valleys. The longer
Yeah.
rolling average you do, it'll just kind of smooth the chart.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes you'll do these in a line
Well,
graph.
one thing I love about when you are able to kind of level things, it creates a scenario where you're less reactionary.
That's right.
To it's like, oh my gosh, this is the worst. Oh my gosh, it's like this is a rolling average.
Mhm.
You're gonna have, and it all, yeah.
Yeah. It's
Helps a dealer to go.
yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
That's important. I think it's because it keeps us from being reactive with our
Mhm.
team, which keeps them from being reactive,
Yeah.
with the consumer. And so I think it's appropriate to look at but it's also, it's why I suggest
Yeah.
let's look at more than one thing.
Mhm.
If we're really going to assess the portfolio performance, and we're going to really look at, in particular, the performance of our collections team, let's look at more than one
That's
indicator.
almost like that's a secondary topic
Yeah.
about how have we talked about that on the morning show? Tying pay plans to collection, like your
Not
collectors or your
much. I don't
managers.
really like to talk about pay
Okay.
plans on the morning show because it just, it's
So
too.
many things
Well,
that
it's just
yeah.
problematic when you've got
Yeah.
both the employee and the employer in that conversation. It's like,
Mhm.
while we'd like to be transparent, in reality, we have to make sure when it comes to pay plans, you got to be really thoughtful and be
That is
careful.
that is one of the challenges of having a platform where you're giving information to dealers, managers, and team members alike.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because they can all hear it. And we're happy for them to hear it. We just think that this is, and not every dealer, by the way, is going to subscribe to this strategy that we're recommending, this
Mhm.
approach to take not the reality is, Michelle, not all of them can afford it. Like it's just simply,
Mhm.
they're restricted by their covenants and they simply cannot afford to be as flexible with customers as what we might suggest. And so that's easy. It's, when we don't have a lender, we're just saying, look, in terms of portfolio performance and long-term yield and success of the customer, success of the portfolio, take the lender out of the picture for a minute and say, this is what we would recommend. Now, sometimes that's a little bit of conflict with, the lender and their covenants. And I'll say it, like if I were in a position to talk to them, I would ask all the lenders in our space to look at expanding covenants for dealers in this time when consumers are struggling. One of the ways that we think can help with efficiency and longer term performance is to de-emphasize the delinquency factor. And so the quickest way to do that is to allow more time. Just allow the dealer the ability to be flexible and work with the customer and allow them a little more time to get caught up.
Yeah.
And so that's easy to say.
But that requires communication with your lenders or with your capital
a lot of
providers.
Lenders come from a background, they say, no, not going to do it. Been there, been burned. Well, that's your dealer and who you're doing business with. If your dealer is able to be cooperative and flexible, and you can find a way to otherwise confirm that the account is performing, because I think at the end of the day, virtually all lenders just need to know that the assets are real, that they're performing as expected, and that, we've got some way to measure that. So this is among the way, look, if it's just up to Jim, that's what we do. We would expand covenants, we would be more flexible, and we would grant more time to get the customer back on track, because the reality is in today's economy with, fuel prices and grocery prices, as you talked about, it's like the consumer is going to have a little harder time catching up. And so, this is not a new thing, this idea of being, you think, well, if I get too flexible, but that's not new. We've always had that in buy here, pay here. When we're too cooperative, we can pay a price for that. That's absolutely true and will always be true. So it's like, that's not what I'm suggesting. I'm just simply saying, let's have tools to be able to, in the meantime, we can measure it. Let's just measure it and see how we're doing. And those, they aren't necessarily meant to compare you to other dealers as much as it is for you to compare month over month your own results and know, like I say, sometimes, if the wheels are starting to come off, we need to know that, we need to see that
and
before.
The more clear you're measuring, the more ability you have to see that.
Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. See it coming, see it like, okay. Yeah.
So if we see a problem, then there's a chance for us to get the car in the shop before the wheels come completely. Right. So
exactly.
Right.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I hope that you learned a little bit.
Yeah.
I did. I appreciate that. I hope you have a great Monday. If you are listening to this and would like to be able to see the actual charts, please go to our YouTube channel.
Yeah, there you go.
And you'll be able to watch it and listen and, maybe learn a thing or two.
Yeah.
So have a great day, everybody. Thanks again so much for joining.